Hello, this is Graham Plaster, the CEO of theintelligencecommunity.com, and I'm here with a distinguished guest for an interview, former attaché from Iraq to the United States. This is Brigadier General Alsodani. Did I say that right? Alsodani, right?
Right.
And so we just want to talk a little bit about the current state of affairs in Iraq and get his perspective. It's a unique perspective. And also, once we get the interview up on LinkedIn, we'll allow people to submit some questions and interact that way. So, General, I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself and talk about your personal and professional background, if you could.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to meet with the intelligence community and the audience from this distinguished organization. Hopefully, we are giving a very professional, neutral perspective about the situation in Iraq and the ISIS and what are the threats of ISIS in the future and what is our outcomes from the all this dynamics that going on in the region. To introduce myself, Brigadier General retired Ismael Alsodani from Iraqi Army. I've been joining the Iraqi military college 1982 as a student cadet, and then I've been delegated to India 1984. I have been graduated from Indian Military Academy 1986. Served in Iraqi Army for almost 30 years in different positions of commanding positions and staff positions as well. Most significant position for me, in fact, which I believe it's very significant and an addition to my career, is the defense attaché of Iraq in the Iraqi embassy in Washington, D.C. That was 2007-2009.
I can see a picture of you shaking Admiral Mullen's hand behind you. Is that
that was back in 2009 in Iraqi Army Day that took place in Washington, D.C. And I really was very fortunate to receive Admiral Mullen at that time. He was the chairman, and he made very distinguished remarks in that event. However, my positions, several positions in the military command staff, mostly in the training, logistic operations. I have been through all major operations that Iraqi forces had been since 1980 until 2000 and until today, in fact, because I've been retired since 2011.
Right. Okay. All right. And can you tell us a little bit more about your personal background, maybe your family, the region you grew up in?
I've been born in Iraq, Baghdad, 1962. I'm married. I have 4 kids. Currently, I am living in the United States. After retirement, I moved here because my kids are studying in the American schools, and therefore it is very important for me to be joining them.
So, just moving on to our next question, what's your perspective on the current state of affairs in Iraq?
Well, this is very complicated because the current Iraqi government has received or has been inherited such a heavy legacy from the former government, whether in the political or economic or security as well. In the political, Iraqi government had a lot of disputes with the Kurds up north and with the Sunni entities, and that had grown the absentness from the Iraqi government. Also, in the security, Iraqi government has inherited 3 provinces out of the control of the government, and most of the Iraqi security forces, suffering shortage of armament and manpower. In the economy, I believe that the current government is required to address a huge deficit in the budget. So the current situation is very difficult for the government, but at the same time, the government is working hard to address all these issues in order to settle many political disputes with the political partners, whether locally or regionally or internationally. And at the same time, they need to address the security issue. They need to drive ISIS out of the Anbar province, Salahuddin province, and Nineveh province, with a very short shortage, a severe shortage in let's say manpower and in the armament and supplies and the logistic as well. I think the situation is very hard, very difficult, but at the same time is with the help of the international community, with the international partners and the regional partners, Iraq could move forward to address these difficulties.
So what would you say, if you could be specific, I'd appreciate it, some specific things that U.S. foreign policy experts and also the American people should be watching as things unfold?
Well, regarding Iraq, I think the unique option for the foreign policy expert and the U.S. foreign policy expert, they should watch out, or they should support Iraqi government in order to address these issues. In fact, there are lots of political processes need to be reformed. There are lots of political reconciliation, even national reconciliation. Also, the foreign policy experts need to support the strengthening of the Iraqi security forces. It's very important to see strong government that's supported by strong armed forces in order to restore the Iraq confidence in themselves to start the let's say political processes in a perfect manner, so everybody will be persuaded. In fact, if I would say that unfortunately the regional partner as well as the political internal partner or local partners wouldn't like to see Iraqi government strong enough to stand for their threat, because if they would have Iraqi government that strongness, I believe that they will be depriving them from their influence inside Iraq. For instance, every entity inside Iraq would like to have their own portion. They would like to have their own interest in Iraq on the account of the other, no matter what kind of these influence will be. So I believe that it's very important to support a strong Iraqi government in order to prevent any kind of intervention or foreign influence in the Iraqi policy or Iraqi decision.
Mm-hmm. And how does the U.S. support the Iraqi government? A couple specific things that you think we should be doing?
I think one of them, it's very important to bring all the players together. I don't think so. Iraq will have the stability or the security without to bring all the players, whether regional or the internal players, together and to achieve the agreement, and that agreement should be unanimously agreed upon among all the players. So I think this will be, I would say, that will be delegated to the politicians to take part in it and support Iraqi government by giving them support politically within the international community, and press on the, let's say, regional players to support Iraq as well.
So how does ISIS view itself, and how should we view ISIS?
Well, in fact, I would like to, go back to ISIS during, ISIS is not a strange, or it came from the emptiness. ISIS has been born from the insurgency inside Iraq after 2003. ISIS is a terror organization which has been separated from the Al-Qaeda in Iraq. And most of the insurgency organizations who were active in the Sunni provinces were supporting each other. And therefore, they work hard to push against the American troops first and the American Iraqi security forces. That was back 2003 until 2011. So it represents the absolute form of radical extremists of Islam. It is technically an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, and both organizations are adopting similar ideological narrative, which is primarily based on the Wahhabism doctrine. Wahhabi doctrine is adopted by major Sunni countries in the Islamic world as a major source of legislation and religious education. The motivated notion of this terror group or this terror organization is that they are sole sect which is standing at the side of the righteousness as a real Muslim. Islam is in jeopardy to be eliminated by other Islamic sects and the other non-Muslims. So therefore they consider anyone who does not follow them as infidel or kafir. They presume that the only way to preserve Islam by declaring the holy war against all Muslim or non-Muslim, no matter who is and who are. The organization is merely relied on this notion to recruit and brainwash as many as Muslim, and this is the main notion and the main narrative of this organization. In my perspective, this notion or this narrative should be part of the strategy to counter ISIL. It's not a matter of defeating ISIL on the ground or on the area of operation and leaving schools, mosques, generating more radical young people to participate in this holy war. So in my perspective, this is the real definition of ISIL. And if we cannot deroot this narrative of course not by force, it should be by educational strategy adopted by the Muslim countries themselves to get rid of them in the future. And of course also I believe it's not only the narrative, it's also the funding and the financing and the flowing of the finance to them, and in order to sustain themselves. So in order to defeat ISIL, we need to understand who is ISIL and how we can defeat them and how we can destroy them. It's not a matter of defeating them in the battleground, but it's how to destroy them also in the strategic arena.
Well, you talk about defeating the narrative, and yet when you also talk about the rhetoric of destroying, it definitely creates that underdog mentality in their narrative that attracts more and more people. A lot of people have been noticing how well ISIL has done in utilizing social media in their recruiting tactics, and how difficult it's been to, go out and produce that counter narrative that you're talking about. What do you think that Muslim leaders should be doing as far as crafting that counter narrative?
Well, I think if we would like to counter, the strategy to counter ISIL has 3 dimensions specifically. And the first dimension that we have to start with the educational strategy to counter and to disapprove their narrative. It's not a matter of adopting the same narrative and to generate more and more from the young people in Muslim countries and even in non-Muslim countries, even in Europe and even maybe in the United States as well, in the South Asia. The problem is how these countries, the Muslim countries, should be adopting a strategy or having a strategy to counter this kind of narrative by disapproving this narrative. And of course, everybody, I think the main people who are affected by ISIS are the Muslims themselves, because in their narrative they have to get rid of the Muslims who are not following their narrative or their ideology, and therefore I think it's very important to design or craft a strategy among the Muslim countries. If I would say that bringing all allies from different countries in Europe or from United States would increase the attraction to be part of ISIL for those. It will help them to recruit more people, because they will craft it, or they will put it in the image of Crusaders versus Muslims, and it really will get advantages from. And therefore, I would say that this is my personal perspective. The Muslim countries should be in lead. They shouldn't stay aside waiting for the result to be addressed so they will get the benefit from that campaign against ISIS. No, the time is for the Muslim countries to react, the Muslim countries to go forward and to be in the lead to counter this kind of narratives and this kind of distraction of the Muslim faith. If I am Muslim and I have faith which is totally contradicted with the ISIS narrative, it's my responsibility by Quran itself. It's my responsibility to rectify him, and if he refused to be rectified, I have to fight him because he is discrediting, distorting the Islam faith. So I would say that in my personal perspective, again, Muslim countries should be in the lead. Muslim countries should take charge, should stop financing, should stop the fund, should stop this knowledge, ideology or narrative, should stop the education institutes, schools, mosques, which are, you know, generating this kind of narratives against.
So what, given the current conditions and given what we've already talked about, give me kind of a best case and worst case scenario of some possible outcomes for what we see happening.
Well, the best scenario, I would like to say that ISIS is an organization, has not been designed to capture the ground. This is first of all. But because of the vacuum that took place in Syria as well as in Iraq, they even surprised that they have been in a situation that they got a privilege to be a state, unfortunately. So therefore, their tactics, in fact, as a military professional, all the rebels, let's say, tactics relies on hit and run. They don't capture the ground. So they miss a lot of elements in order to capture the ground. They don't have, let's say, aerospace cover. They don't have any heavy weapons. They don't have sustainable logistic or line of communication. So therefore, sooner or later, ISIS has to be driven outside Iraq. But the question is, will we not going to see ISIS again in the future? This is depends on, let's say, how we are gonna execute the strategy and destroy them. It's not, you know, it's not only driving them out. I would like also to say, that we have, as an international community, should not deal with ISIS in Iraq differently or separately than ISIS in Syria. And this is really, you know, in my perspective, they are one entity, and we have to deal with them in one entity. If the strategy will deal with ISIS in Iraq different than ISIS in Syria, at the same, you know, at the end of the day, we will see ISIS will be moving around and will be appearing in different area in the region, maybe in Yemen or in Libya or in any other places in the Middle East. This is the best. Yeah, sorry.
Keep going. Go ahead. You can finish.
Yeah, I think the best scenario is to get rid of ISIS, you know, and terminate their existence in the Middle East and in the world. By the way, there are maybe sleeping cells here and there in Europe or in South Asia or in any other countries in the world. So we need to terminate them. And I think we have the capability. We have now all the international community is unified against ISIS. There is no any exclusion from this campaign against ISIS. The worst scenario is to fight ISIS in Iraq and clear Iraq from ISIS, and then ISIS will be appearing in somewhere else in the region. This is gonna showing us or demonstrate wasting the efforts, wasting the resources, and we will not see ISIS terminated or had been degraded and destroyed fully.
Can you, I know you've emphasized in the past the importance of international coalitions and cooperation, and you've already said that you feel like the Muslim community and the Muslim countries should take the lead on that. Can you name some specific organizations and alliances that you think either that already exist should take the lead, or maybe need to be created in order to make some progress?
Well, as I told you, that the consensus on fighting ISIS is already there. So, I mean, Muslim countries, Western countries, international community, UN, all the organized Arab leagues, and even the Islamic organization, Islamic world is big enough. Large countries in the world are taking place in the Muslim countries, so they have to put a very inclusive strategy. And as I said at the beginning, that this strategy should treat three dimensions: that on the ground fighting, them, and I think this is not a very hard task to feed them on the ground. The second issue, counter the narrative, and there should be some educational, strategy to educate the people and disapprove their narratives on the schools and education system in the Muslim countries. The third issue is, interception of all money flow or the funding flow or illegal activities that taking place in a daily basis to fund and sustain this organization.
Right, and ISIS is very well funded, as you both know.
I think it's very wealthy, and I think it is still, unfortunately, some countries who are taking part in the international coalition. Apparently, they are, giving a blind eye on these illegal activities, especially smuggling the oil and so on. So that is taking place in the northern part of Iraq and in Turkey as well.
I wanted to just kind of dig in a little bit on the use of the chlorine attacks by ISIL. Can you talk about that?
Well, I missed to tell that most of the ISIS elements who had joined Al-Qaeda and the insurgency in Iraq had been blocked to join the new Iraq, unfortunately. From 2003, as you recall, that de-Baathification and disbanding of the armed forces. So most of those elements who were professional during Saddam's era didn't find an opportunity to be hired by the government. So they turned their face towards the insurgency. So they became part of Al-Qaeda, and ultimately they became part of ISIL. Most of them are professional. If you recall, also during Iraq-Iran war, Saddam has used the chemical weapons against Iran, against the Kurdish population in Halab. Of course, those people still alive and have been excluded, and as I said, they've been plugged out not to join the new Iraq. So at the same time, there are lots of engineers and technicians who were, working with the military industries during the Saddam's era, who were in charge of industry of the chemical weapons. So ISIL apparently controlled on the stockpile of the chlorine that used for water purification during their offenses in Salah ad-Din and Nainawa and Diyala as well, and Bar province. So they tried to manufacture primitive chemical weapons. So they have used it in 2 or 3 incidents, unfortunately, but that was very limited. But this would refer to me as a professional that those will keep trying to acquire the chemical weapons and to use these chemical weapons, and they don't wait to use these chemical weapons against the civilians, because ends justify the means. That's simple.
Right. And I have one final question for you. You're welcome to add more on top of this if you want to comment on any other topics or make any other points. But do you have plans to do any, writing of articles or books? Do you have any, scheduled appointments to speak to any audiences, just to share it with our group so that they can anticipate that and look for it?
Well, I welcome any efforts, in fact, to any event to take part in, and to make my comment as a professional and neutral. Thanks God, I am not a politician, so I'm not gonna in charge of the political issue. But at the same time, as an observer, I could analyze, and I made my personal analysis accordingly. I welcome any event. I'm gonna take part in the next month with some distinguished organization. I will be the distinguished speaker for them, and I will also try to write something. And of course, I will be more than happy to be part of your community.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you on to interview you, and we'll make sure that when we post it to LinkedIn and have a discussion thread going, that you'll be able to answer some of the questions, if you'd like, that get posted. And I would imagine that will probably generate a lot of debate around certain issues. But one thing I really respect and appreciate is that you do really strive to have that neutral ground, and you've been a real example, I think, for our community. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here with you. Thank you, and I will be happy to answer any question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. Have a great weekend.